Brian Smith has been protecting me and doting on me since I was 15 years old. I always firmly believed that even if all the men in the world would betray me, he would never do so. But when I was about to die, I realized that it was true that he loved me deeply and that he kept a mistress outside. In return, I gave him a big gift. The gift was so heavy that it was enough to make him heartbroken and miserable for the rest of his life. If he still has time to live. 1. It snowed heavily on the winter solstice. I stood in front of the window of the obstetrics and gynecology department, looking at the vast white sky and earth, and my messy thoughts only came up with one thought. What would Brian do if I died? She came for a pregnancy checkup happily, but ended up being diagnosed with kidney cancer. I didn't know how to tell him so as not to make him too sad. Suppressing my sadness, I was about to call him, but he and my mother-in-law unexpectedly appeared in my sight. They were walking from the parking lot to the outpatient building. My mother-in-law and a young girl were holding hands intimately, and Brian was a little distance away from them. Maybe the snow was too slippery. The girl suddenly stumbled, and my mother-in-law immediately turned around and called him. Amidst the falling snow, a tall and handsome man is caring for a petite girl. The scene is so beautiful and dazzling. I know that girl very well. She is his secretary, Jennifer Johnson. I had no idea that their relationship had become so close. 2. Brian is the only family I have in this world. He has been protecting and pampering me since I was 15 years old. I always firmly believed that even if all the men in the world would betray me, he would never do so. Staring at him and Jennifer walking together, I called him, but he didn't answer. He clearly took out his phone and looked at the screen, but then put it back into his pocket. I watched him walk them both into the outpatient hall, and then walk to the parking lot alone. The phone in my hand rang at this moment. What's wrong, Angela? Someone was reporting something to me just now, so I didn't have time to answer it. Brian's tone was as intimate and gentle as ever, and even his lies were imperceptible. I couldn't help but wonder how many lies he had told me. My mouth was slightly stiff. I have something to tell you. I'll go to the company to find you later. He just paused and stood still. I have meetings all morning, so I really don't have time. How about I take some time to have lunch with you at noon? He has been very busy lately, not to mention having dinner with me. He often doesn't even come home until I fall asleep. I always felt sorry for him and told him not to overdraw his health. But now it seems, what is he busy with? Once trust is torn, the tear will only get bigger and bigger. I can't figure it out. Life is so short. Love someone wholeheartedly, without deception and without hurt. Isn't it good? 3. I held back the questions that were about to come out of my mouth and didn't expose him. I hate arguing on the phone. I am used to speaking clearly in person. In fact, when I saw the 2 lines on the pregnancy test paper this morning, I was surprised and wanted him to accompany me to the hospital. But seeing that he looked in a hurry, I didn't want to take up his time. Who would have thought that he, who was in such a hurry to go out, was actually accompanying someone to the hospital? After hanging up the phone, my stomach suddenly churned. I walked quickly to the bathroom and retched, but nothing came out. When I stood up, I heard my mother-in-law's voice in the corridor. Jennifer, please walk slower and be careful at all times. Don't worry, the baby is only 5 weeks old. I don't feel anything at all. Don't be so nervous. Silly girl, you have to be more careful during the first 3 months. Okay, I'll listen to you and promise to give you a big, fat, white grandson so that you and Brian can be happy every day. Haha, sure. I just like your playfulness. Even though Brian doesn't say it, he actually likes your personality a lot. Jennifer, I'm just waiting for you 3 to come together, so I can enjoy the family happiness. Something seemed to explode in my brain. It was like a bolt of thunder from a clear sky, striking me from head to toe. What a coincidence. My baby is also 5 weeks old, loving me while getting someone else pregnant. Suddenly I felt so sick. I couldn't vomit anything just now, but all of a sudden I vomited everything. 4. As I walked out of the outpatient hall, the cool snowflakes fell on my face. My heart is chilled. Brian's car was no longer in the parking lot, but I can't wait until noon to meet. I went directly to his company. The front desk clerk respectfully welcomed me into his office, but he hadn't come back yet. I sat in front of his desk, looking at the photos of us in high school, college, newlyweds, and our 10th wedding anniversary not long ago, and my nose suddenly felt sore. In my memory, the boy who was always cool and arrogant and didn't like to talk to others was extremely gentle to me. Angela, don't cry. Your father is gone, but I'm here to protect you. I will never leave you. Marry me, Angela. I swear to protect you forever and make you the happiest person. I, Brian, swear to God that I will only love Angela Brown for the rest of my life. If I betray her, I will die. Oath is probably the most worthless thing in the world. But the person who heard the oath took it seriously. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, the saddest thing was not that I was going to die, but that after I died, he couldn't live without me. How would he live the rest of his life? But maybe he could be better off without me? I laughed at myself and my eyes turned red. But what can I do? I am unwilling to accept this. Just then, Jennifer's cute laughter and footsteps came closer and closer. Thank you, Brian, for taking the time to treat me to breakfast. I will work harder to repay Brian. Okay, you're the poor one. Give me the cake quickly. I've been craving this flavor for a long time. You are not allowed to eat snacks right after breakfast. Come to me in an hour to get them. Tisk, you're really strict. But hee, I'll obey you. The door was pushed open. The smile on Brian's face froze suddenly when he saw me. 5. I looked at the cake in Brian's hand and pretended to be surprised. Are you in sync? I just wanted to eat cake, and you bought it. Brian's tense expression relaxed a little. He walked towards me quickly and placed the cake directly in front of me. I bought the orange mousse you like especially for you. Jennifer's face changed instantly, but she immediately forced a smile. Hey, Sister Angela is here? Long time no see. Sister Angela is still as elegant and charming as ever. No wonder Brian always says I'm childish and immature. It's the years that have precipitated my temperament. Are you implying that because I'm older, you can beat me? She owes me too much, and will have to pay it back sooner or later. I smiled faintly and ignored it. Brian frowned. Jennifer, get out. She was so complacent that she probably didn't expect that the father of her child would not only not condone her playing tricks on me, but would severely reprimand her. She bit her lip, looking pitiful. Sorry, Brian. I won't disturb you and Angela anymore. Unfortunately, Brian didn't even look at her. She left angrily. His eyes remained locked on my face, and his voice was cautious. Didn't I say I'd pick you up before lunch? Why are you here? I looked at him. The tears that I had been holding back for so long began to fall. He was obviously panicking, and hurriedly wiped my tears and hugged me gently. Angela, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I'm dying. Just before I died, I realized that the lover I loved the most had actually betrayed me a long time ago. And those who betray their true heart should pay the price, right? I threw the cake into the trash can. My tears flowed even harder, but I smiled at him. I bought the cake for her. Why did you have to lie to me? If you like a young girl, just tell me and I can help you. Brian, don't worry about the vows we made in the past. I just want you to be with the one you love and live happily every day. His face changed drastically. A face that was usually so indifferent was now filled with panic, which was rare. 6. Angela, you are the only one in my heart. I will never like anyone else. Don't think too much. Brian's serious expression almost made me believe it. Brian, I'll just ask you once, what is your relationship with Jennifer? Seeing him about to open his mouth, I added softly, don't lie to me, or we will never see each other again until we die. This sentence really made him silent. Gradually, the corners of his eyes turned red. I'm sorry, Angela. I was afraid of losing you, so I kept it a secret from you. I have nothing to do with Jennifer, but she is pregnant with my child. My hands are shaking. My whole body started to tremble. This is probably the most shameless thing I have ever heard. Brian hugged me tightly, his voice rapid and hoarse. In the past few years, my mother has been urging me to divorce you because of the child. I was afraid that you would be upset, so I never let you know. She liked Jennifer and always wanted to bring me together with her. When I refused, she threatened to commit suicide to force me to do so. I didn't betray you. The child was conceived through artificial insemination. My mother promised that she would take care of the child after it was born, and that she would never hinder our relationship again. That's why I agreed. I'm sorry, Angela, but I can't just watch my mom die and not do anything. So that's how it is. It's just like in the old days when the wife was infertile, so they would take a concubine to carry on the family line. The difference is that he thinks that as long as we didn't have sex, it doesn't count as betrayal. I laughed. Having a child can save his mother's precious life, which is really worth it. It's just that the innocent boy who once loved me like his life, he will never come back. 7. Brian lost his father at a young age and was raised by his mother-in-law Michelle alone. She brought Brian up to be outstanding and always hoped that he would marry a girl from a good family. But he fell in love with an orphan like me and loved me wholeheartedly. But after those 2 times, I couldn't get pregnant again for many years. So, Michelle was extremely sarcastic and mean to me in private, even scolding me for causing the Smith family to be extinct and cursing me to go to hell. But in front of outsiders and Brian, she behaved like a perfect and considerate mother-in-law. If I say something bad about her, no one will believe me. Fortunately, Brian truly loves me and respects my request not to live with his mother. In addition, I deliberately avoid meeting Michelle alone, so we have lived in peace for many years. But it turns out that everything was peaceful. That was just what I thought. I smiled, but my voice was shaking. Brian, before we got married, she committed suicide to force you to break up with me. Have you forgotten? Brian's eyes were slightly shocked. My thoughts were suddenly pulled back to the past. After a long while, I heard him murmur weakly, I've heard her once before, and she's older now. After a moment of distraction, I wanted to laugh even more. Faced with the same suicide scenario, he made a different choice. It seems like for all these years, I'm the one who's hindering their happy family life with loving mother and filial children? So they all come to force me? He was frightened by my laughter and hugged me again, looking at me pleadingly. Angela, don't leave me because of this. Apart from this, I can do whatever you want. Is anything okay? Okay. I nodded with a smile. I'm pregnant too. Your family will not be extinct. Let Jennifer abort the baby and fire her. I'll pretend nothing happened. 8. I looked Brian in the eyes. I thought that as long as he nodded, I would risk my life to give birth to the child safely and leave it to him. But I clearly saw that his eyes were full of shock and confusion. Only there is no joy. Angela, please don't be angry with me, okay? My dad passed away early, and my mom had a hard life. Since you can't have children, I had to choose a compromise. You and my mom are the closest people to me. Can't you understand my difficulties? I held back the pain in my heart and spoke slowly, enunciating each word. I'm really pregnant. Do I have to give you the pregnancy test results? Unfortunately, I was vomiting so hard that I tore it into pieces while crying. Brian rubbed his brow and took a deep breath. You've been to so many hospitals and taken so many medicines over the years, but you still can't get pregnant. I really don't want to see you suffer anymore. So I agreed to my mother's request. I couldn't help but look sideways. Oh, so he wants to have a baby with Jennifer for my own good? He paused, frowned, and held my shoulders. Besides, even if you are pregnant, you have taken so many medicines, and the child may not be healthy. Stop being unreasonable with me, okay? I promise to give Jennifer's child to my mother after it is born, and I will never see her again. Isn't that enough? You have always been so sensible, Angela. Why do you have to make me feel awkward now? With every word he spoke, my heart sank. We looked at each other. The air is stagnant. Just then Jennifer knocked on the door to remind him of the meeting. I smiled and said, It's okay to keep the child and fire her, right? Seeing my smile, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and hugged me tightly. Okay, I promise, as long as you don't get mad at me. Well, I won't be angry anymore. Because it doesn't matter anymore. After leaving Brian's company, I went straight to the hospital. In fact, when the doctor suggested that I give up the child and focus on cancer treatment, I was so reluctant to part with this hard-earned little one. I was planning to use my life to exchange for this little guy's survival, so that he could accompany his father in my place. I believe his father will give him all his love and make him the happiest baby in the world. It doesn't matter even if I am not there to accompany him to grow up. But unfortunately, his father didn't love him that much, and was even expecting someone else to have a child. Why should I start a life that is destined to be difficult for him? I didn't choose painless surgery. I want this heart-wrenching pain to remind myself that I cannot be the only one suffering. 9. The operation was completed quickly. It is so difficult to make life brilliant, but it is so easy to end a life. I took a picture of myself looking ashen, and posted it along with the surgery form on my moments, visible only to myself. There will be no bright moon for Brian. I really want to know how Brian will feel when he sees this picture and text in the future. But what happened to him has nothing to do with me anymore. I sat on the bench outside the operating room, emptying my mind for a long time. When I managed to stand up, I immediately felt a surge of blood from under my body. I held onto the wall, and every time I moved, it felt like a knife was cutting between my legs. Suddenly, I thought of the little mermaid in the fairy tale. After she lost her fish tail, she must have felt the same unbearable pain as she crawled step by step to the prince. But in the end, she still couldn't get the love and life she wanted, and it all turned into bubbles sadly. If the prince knew the truth, he would probably say, "Don't blame me, I'm innocent." Just like my Brian, he hugged me tightly with red eyes. "I love you so much. Why do you make me feel so embarrassed?" At once. Very funny. However, I will not be like the little mermaid who turned into foam after losing the prince. I want to be more valuable. 10. When I arrived at the cancer hospital, my whole body was drenched in cold sweat. Kevin Brown's eyes turned red when he saw me. "Senior, don't be afraid. Let's do a comprehensive physical examination first. If the cancer cells have not metastasized, we will evaluate the plan of kidney removal. As long as the treatment is timely, the 10-year survival rate of kidney cancer is also very high." Kevin and I both graduated from the North City University Medical School. He is 2 years younger than me, and is now a key member of the urological oncology department. However, due to an injury 3 years ago, I can no longer hold a scalpel, and have bid farewell to my beloved profession forever. I smiled and shook my head. I only have this one kidney. The other kidney was also lost due to the trauma, so I know my situation is not optimistic. Looking at Kevin's shocked and pitying eyes, I waved my hands repeatedly. "Don't look at me like that. I don't want to see acquaintances for treatment, but I can't stand the looks from everyone. Actually, I'm looking for you to treat my illness, not for the main reason. I want you to do me a favor." Kevin quickly adjusted his mood and nodded seriously. "Senior, you go ahead. I want to donate my body to our college for research." With a bang, the cup of water Kevin was using to fill for me suddenly fell to the ground. "Senior," he suddenly choked up. In the end, I was the one who comforted him for a long time. My life is a little short, and I haven't lived it to its fullest. Let me do something meaningful after I die. Besides, I don't want to live in a cemetery and give Brian a place to pay tribute to me. I feel disgusted whenever I think about him being the father of Jennifer's child, and that they will have more children even after I die. I'm dead. Please don't discuss me anymore. 11. It was already evening when I got home. I thought I would have to face a deserted, empty house as usual. I didn't expect that the busy man Brian would wear an apron and work in the kitchen for me. His gentle smile, as before, makes me miss the time we had together. Unfortunately, there is no going back. He held me tightly when I slept. "I'm taking a week off for the new year. Let me spend New Year's Eve with you at Universal Studios. And then we can go to the hot springs for a vacation, okay?" I was stunned for a moment. When Universal Studios first opened, I wanted him to go with me, but he put it off for 3 months. During these 3 months, I loved him as much as before, but he was busy making a baby with Jennifer. If I hadn't seen it and exposed it, touching the guilt in his heart, I'm afraid I would never have seen this day before I died. I smiled, "Okay." Seeing that I agreed, he breathed a sigh of relief and held my fingers tightly. The voice was unspeakably gentle. "Angela, actually, I have been hiding from you and not going home these past few months because I was afraid to face you. I will never do that again, okay? Good. We can still be the same as before. Without any barriers and close to each other, okay? Good. Seeing that I was smiling at him, he became a little flustered again. Angela, you really understand me and don't blame me anymore, right? Yes. I pulled my hand away and gently smoothed his slightly frowned brows. I don't want to leave each other with noisy and broken memories before we leave. What's more, the more gentle I am now, the more likely he will be, the more painful it is. This is the final punishment I leave for him, after loving him so deeply. Leaning in Brian's warm embrace and listening to his even breathing, I gradually felt sleepy. Suddenly, there was a buzzing sound from the cell phone. It's Jennifer. I curled the corners of my mouth. Not surprising at all. She must be the first one to lose her temper. 12. Senior, Brian called me a lot. I was busy and just saw it. His tone was full of caution. Do you want to ask him to come and take care of you? 20. I asked Kevin for help a long time ago. Unless necessary, don't tell any of my former teachers or classmates about my illness. I especially warned him not to tell Brian. At the beginning, I wanted to tell him the first thing. We agreed that we should never hide anything from each other, no matter good or bad. And I depended on him so much, and I needed him to give me courage and support, and accompany me to fight the disease to the end. But in the end, I found that, the only one I could rely on was myself. Kevin is not a talkative person. He agreed seriously, without asking any more questions. Maybe now they feel that it is too pitiful for me, as I already have cancer, and unfortunately broke my head. Can you help me hire a more attentive nurse in your hospital? One-on-one long-term? I want to be transferred to your hospital for treatment as soon as possible. Kevin couldn't help it. Senior. What's going on between you and Brian? I smiled. He's too busy, and I don't want to bother him now. But I need to pass on some things to him later, and I'd like to trouble you to help me. He looked at me, was silent for a moment and nodded. After Kevin left, I turned on my phone. Only then did I realize that I had been in a coma for a day and 2 nights. It is now the 2nd day of the new year. Looking through the call log, the first call Brian made to me was in the early hours of New Year's Day. I guess by then his mother and Jennifer were no longer in danger. So he remembered the embarrassing scene of me falling on New Year's Eve. Or maybe I was just making malicious assumptions. His mom might not have had anything wrong at all. She just couldn't stand him spending New Year's Eve with me. He would never think that the person who almost died was not his mother, but me. And on WeChat, he kept asking me the same question over and over again. Where on earth have you been? Can you please stop being angry? Why haven't you gone home yet? Home. As the new year begins, I no longer have a home. Besides, in your future of having a large family with many grandchildren, you never planned to leave a place for me. I wiped away my tears quietly and blocked him from my address book in WeChat. 21. After being transferred to the cancer hospital, Kevin arranged a single room for me. However, due to the serious head injury suffered in the accident, my condition was not good. After the drainage tube was removed, I had a low-grade fever all day and my blood count was very low. With this physical condition, he could not withstand the previously planned tumor treatment, so it had to be postponed. The pain in my waist is getting worse. The pain even kept seeping into the gaps between the bones. I have always been a person who can endure pain very well. I could endure the severe pain of stomach cramps for 2 hours without taking medicine. But now I have reached the point where I cannot live without painkillers every day. After I suddenly fainted due to dizziness again, and was rescued, I looked at myself in the mirror, who was so thin that I was unrecognizable. I felt that I might not be able to hold on for much longer. But I tried so hard to cheer myself up. I wanted to live. Even if I could just live 1 more year, and watch the 4 seasons change again, that would be great. Angela, aren't your family members in North City? If you have something on your mind, can you tell me? Don't keep everything in your heart. It's not good for your health. The nurse Kimberly is a very caring auntie. I like her very much. Sometimes when I see her busying around for me, I can't help but wonder, if my mother were still alive, would she be as gentle and caring towards me as well? No, luckily Mom and Dad are gone. Otherwise, how could I bear to let them endure the sorrow of seeing their loved ones die? Those who survived really suffered more than those who died. I understand that more than anyone. I smiled at Kimberly in comfort. My parents are both dead. I am alone now without any worries. Don't worry. I don't have any worries. I'm just not a talkative person. Kimberly was stunned for a moment and sighed. Good girl, I'm sorry. Kimberly didn't know. It's okay. I smiled. She quickly changed the subject. I heard Kevin call you senior. Are you also a doctor? Yes, it used to be. The burns on my father's face before his death are a pain I will never get rid of. So I chose burn surgery. I was considered young and promising in the department, and the director called me Louis Dow. Unfortunately, I could no longer perform surgery on anyone. Angela, you are in your 20s? Still don't have a partner? You look younger than my daughter-in-law. My daughter-in-law is 26 and is about to give birth. This is the first time I have laughed so happily since I got sick. I'm already 35 and still so ugly. Kimberly, you really know how to coax me. Kimberly looked at me in surprise. I'm not kidding you. The first day I saw you, I thought, if such a young girl got this disease, her parents would be heartbroken. I smiled, turned my head, and wiped my eyes gently. It must be very happy to be your daughter or daughter-in-law. Oh, don't say that. If you get married, your mother-in-law will spoil you to the sky. Such a beautiful and good-tempered little girl, who is polite and considerate, and always speaks softly, makes people feel comfortable. Whoever marries you will be blessed. Will they feel blessed? I was stunned. The look of disgust in Brian's eyes when he yelled at me for his mother that day was exactly the same as the way Michelle always looked at me, and it was like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. After all, it is the love between mother and child. My heart was completely broken from that moment on. It is still broken to this day, but it doesn't hurt that much anymore. I smiled and didn't want to continue the topic of marriage. I fixed my long wig in front of the mirror and put on some lipstick to make myself look a little better. Kimberly, come with me and get some fresh air. Okay, I'll chat with you for a while. I'm happy to see you looking more energetic. Can you help me walk for a few steps? I don't want to sit in a wheelchair and look like a useless person. That won't do. Last time I helped you go for a walk, you fainted. Kevin was mad at me, and I was scared to death. If you want to be obedient, I'll take you out. Otherwise, just lie on the bed and doze off. I smiled helplessly. Okay, I'll listen to you. Just then Kevin called. Senior, I have good news for you. I winked at Kimberly and asked him with a smile. Have you overcome the problem of kidney cancer? Kevin is always serious and sticks to the point, and he hardly ever jokes. He laughed a rare laugh today. Not yet, but after consulting with my teacher and brain specialist, I have developed a new treatment plan for your condition. I am very confident. Never mind. I will go to the ward to find you and tell you in detail. He looked very happy and hung up the phone in a hurry. Kimberly was even more excited than I was. That's great, Angela. What did I say? Good people will be rewarded. When you get better, Kimberly will make all kinds of delicious food for you. I promise to make you plump and white. The warm sunlight outside the window shines on my body. It lights up my heart too. I have never been so eager to live a good life as I am now. 22. The weather was particularly good that day. It may be because I felt that there was hope for my illness, and I was in a good mood. I didn't feel as much pain in my body, because I was too weak to withstand the cold wind outside. Kimberly had to push me around in circles in the building. She only walked near the windows where the sun was shining, and kept nagging me to get more sun to strengthen my body. I was almost sunburned, but I felt warm inside. It feels so good to be loved by elders. Kevin called again and said he had arrived at the ward, so we started to head back. When passing by a medical office, the sound of quarreling was unexpectedly heard. I never liked joining in the fun, so I wanted to tell Kimberly to leave quickly. But suddenly a man's roar was heard. Our old man just broke his knee and had a minor surgery. How could you kill a healthy man? It was clearly a medical malpractice, but you guys are refusing to admit it. Don't you just want to pay for it? Fine, pay with your life then. None of you will get out alive today. Go over there and atone your sins for our old man. What followed was the loud noise of heavy objects being thrown and screaming and panicked cries for help. Kimberly and I were both shocked. It would definitely be too late to call the police. Kimberly, go call security. Okay. I'll be there right away. Just as Kimberly disappeared in the corridor, the door of the medical office was suddenly pushed open, and two nurses supported an elderly female doctor and staggered out. The female doctor covered her shoulders tightly, and the glaring red dyed her white coat. What's worse is that a younger man held on to the three of them, while another middle-aged man chased them wielding a bloody knife and stabbed them wildly. I suddenly thought of my mentor. He had clearly retired and could have enjoyed his retirement, but the hospital needed him to be rehired and continue working. As a result, he was beaten by an irrational patient's family after an operation and died of depression a few years later. And at this moment, a similar scene is happening before my eyes. The older female doctor had been torn and thrown to the ground, and the man was about to stab her with a knife. I turned my wheelchair as hard as I could and slammed it into the man's side. The wheelchair had such a strong force that it successfully knocked him down. The people who came from behind, and the security guards who hurried over quickly subdued the two men. I breathed a sigh of relief. I could hear Kimberly's desperate and sad cries. Angela! Angela, wake up! Don't scare Kimberly, my Angela! You silly child! When I knocked the man down, I was also thrown out and hit the wall hard. My cervical vertebra seemed to be broken, and I couldn't lift my head. It hurt so much. The blood flowed along my head like a river, slowly blocking my vision. I wanted to comfort Kimberly. Don't be afraid, I'm lucky. Everything will be fine. But I no longer have the strength to even open my mouth. The world became dark. Tick, tick. The incessant sound of the instruments brought my scattered consciousness back. Senior, hold on, let's do our best, okay? We already have a treatment plan, Senior, please. Hold on. You will definitely get better, Senior. Is it Kevin? He seemed to be crying. He has always been very calm. So maybe I am not lucky this time. I tried my best to open my eyes, but I couldn't even see his face clearly. I want to smile at him, but I can't seem to do it. Fortunately, I knew I would leave and I arranged everything in advance. If I could meet my father, I would be able to proudly tell him that his Angela had done something meaningful in her life and had never brought shame to him. And my best friend, Kevin, who accompanied me on the last journey of my life. In fact, I have always been afraid of causing trouble to others, and I have always felt sorry for him. He is so busy and works so hard. Finally, I don't have to cause him any more trouble. I felt my body suddenly become lighter. My thoughts were floating in a mess, and my eyelids seemed to be pressed down by a huge weight and could no longer be opened. A little tired, but it feels like I'm about to fly. Would flying make you feel easier and happier? I slowly closed my eyes. Suddenly, there was a heart-wrenching cry from outside. Let me in. Let me in. My wife is in there. Angela is my wife. Whoa, just let me in. This is the ICU, you can't barge in. If you do this again, we will control you by force. Let me go. All of you, let me go. Get out of here. Let me in now. My eyelids twitched. Kevin's voice choked with sobs and became hoarse. Senior, Brian is here. Do you want to meet him? Never mind. Never mind. I used all my strength and shook my head gently. A beautiful sea of flowers flashed quietly before my eyes. In the sea of flowers, there is a boy riding a bicycle, carrying a girl in a fluttering white dress. Angela, marry me. Let me protect you for your father. I will stay with you forever and won't let anyone bully you. What if you bully me? I, Brian, swear to God that I will only love Angela for the rest of my life. If I betray her, I will die a miserable death. The gorgeous sea of flowers withered in an instant. The girl jumped off her bike with a smile and waved gently to the boy. Thank you for accompanying me on such a long and lonely road. But just send me here and never see you again. 23. Brian Extra. After the unpleasant experience on New Year's Eve, Angela started to get angry with me and started to disappear. Looking back, I was indeed too anxious and treated her very badly. I regret it very much, but she didn't even give me a chance to apologize. She didn't answer my calls, didn't reply to my WeChat messages, and even blocked me the next day. Even if I called her from an unfamiliar number, she would never answer the phone, which really pissed me off. And when I think about it carefully, I don't even have the contact information of some of the friends who were close to her over the years. However, after being together for 20 years, we clearly agreed that no matter what conflicts we had, we would not hold grudges overnight, and we would talk things out in time, so as not to create a rift in our relationship. Did she actually forget all this? When did she become so unreasonable? She has no idea how much work I put in day and night to squeeze out this week, just to take a vacation to accompany her and make her happy. The employees of the company once joked with me that they had never seen an elderly couple who had been together for so long and still behaved like Brian did, as if they were in love, with him speaking sweetly to his wife and showing her love in various ways every day. Sometimes, after 3 rounds of drinks, my partners would tentatively put all kinds of beautiful young girls into my arms, but I firmly refused every time and never made a mistake, because Angela is the only one in my heart, and I always remember my promise to her that I will never betray her. Besides, I know Angela's temper too well. If I really touched another woman, even if it was just a casual affair, Angela would never forgive me. But outsiders can see that I hold her in my heart all the time. So why is she becoming more and more unsatisfied? The older I get, the less sensible I am than before. I really feel a little tired. Since she was avoiding me, there was no need for me to take my vacation any longer. It just so happened that the company was working on a multinational project recently, and all the details had to be finalized before the spring festival. So I went back to the company and continued to work. Angela loves me so much. I know she can't ignore me forever. Not to mention that the Chinese New Year is just a month away. She doesn't have any relatives. Where else can she go? She will be angry for a few more days, and she will contact me anyway. And then I will have a good talk with her. And she is not allowed to disappear again. Our relationship can't stand such torment. During the days when she was away, I would go home to see her after get off work every day, and I looked forward to the lights turning on for me as they used to. But every day is disappointing. I had no choice but to stay at my mother's house. After a tiring whole day, at least I could have a hot meal. Fortunately, my mother was safe on New Year's Eve. When I rushed to the hospital, I asked the doctor carefully. The doctor said that she was not seriously ill, and it was probably just the discomfort caused by the emotional fluctuations due to her old age. The doctor told me to pay more attention to the emotions of the elderly in the future and spend more time with them no matter how busy I am at work. I can't help feeling guilty. When my father passed away, I was only 3 years old. My mother was still so young and could have remarried, but she chose the hardest and most difficult path for me. She raised me with great difficulty, and when it was time for me to repay her, I put my heart on Angela. When I was young and hot-tempered, I even insisted on marrying Angela, even if she threatened to commit suicide. This deeply hurt her heart. So later on, I always tried my best to go along with her and treat her well. On the one hand, it was to repay her for raising me, and on the other hand, I wanted to make it up to her and forgive me for breaking her heart when I was young. But my compensation was not enough after all. Angela couldn't get along with her and didn't want to live with her. But I didn't want to make Angela unhappy, so I had to run back and forth. Angela couldn't have children, and my mother cried in front of my father's photo every day, saying that she was sorry to my father for making the Smith family extinct. Finally, after my mother left a suicide note and swallowed sleeping pills, I woke up and realized that she had been so worried. The scene of her suicide many years ago appeared clearly in front of me, which made me extremely panic. If I watch my mom hurt herself again, and I continue to do what I want, will I still be a human being? Divorce is absolutely impossible. I can't give up my beloved Angela just for the sake of my children. So I compromised. My only bottom line is that I will never touch Jennifer. Although my mother was very unhappy, she insisted that children born through artificial insemination would definitely not be as smart as those conceived naturally. But seeing my firm attitude, she had to reluctantly agree. After Jennifer became pregnant, I was a little scared to see Angela. I'm afraid she will break up with me. But I always comfort myself. It's okay. I didn't betray her. I just gave the child to my mother. I will give Jennifer a large sum of money as compensation. She is not a difficult girl. We will be in peace in the future. Fortunately, Angela was as sensible as I thought. Although she was a little sad, she quickly figured it out and stopped making things difficult for me. Life finally returned to normal and moved forward smoothly as I expected. Since my mother brought Jennifer to live with them, they have been talking and laughing every day. My mother is very happy, which makes me feel very emotional. Many times when I saw them being so happy together, I couldn't help but think, if Angela could also coax my mother like this, life would be so perfect and happy. As for Jennifer, she is not my type at all. There is absolutely no way I could have any romantic feelings for her. At most, after we give birth to the child, there will be a family relationship between her and me, that's all. When she gets married, I will prepare the most generous dowry for her according to the standards for my younger sister's marriage. After all, I talked to her at the beginning, and I told her that if my mother forced her to do something she didn't want to do, she could refuse, and I would persuade my mother and not force her to have a child for me. But she said that she regarded Angela as her own sister, and she was willing to give birth to a child for me on behalf of Angela, so that the child could accompany Angela in the future, so that Angela wouldn't be lonely when she got older. I know Angela loves children. When she lost the 2 children, she had nightmares and cried every night. She is usually very good to Jennifer. Jennifer was saved by my father-in-law. Angela once said that when she sees Jennifer, she thinks of her father. Jennifer is alive and well, and her father's breath seems to always surround her and never leave. So I think if I must have a child, it will be easier for Angela to accept it if Jennifer gives birth to me rather than someone else. I was busy with work while waiting for news from Angela. Unexpectedly, at noon on the 7th, when I was reviewing the terms of the contract to be signed in the afternoon, several employees suddenly rushed into my office in a panic, holding up videos on their mobile phones and yelling at me. Brian, take a look at the hot news that just broke out. Why does that injured person who rescued others look so much like my wife? The injured. When I heard this word, my brain went blank for a moment. I quickly grabbed their phones. Around 10 a.m. today, a vicious attack on a doctor occurred at the Taipei University Cancer Hospital. The family of the deceased lost control of their emotions and retaliated against the attending doctor with a knife. 3 brave patients stepped forward to rescue him. One of them was seriously injured, and 2 were slightly injured. They are being treated together with the injured doctor. The video was uploaded to the internet by a patient who was watching the incident at the scene. My hands were shaking as I desperately tried to enlarge the screen. The girl covered in blood in the corner. She really seems like my Angela. And I clearly heard the aunt holding the girl on the screen. She cried out again and again. Angela. Angela. At that moment, I felt a black screen in front of my eyes and the earth shook. I grabbed the car keys like crazy and drove to the cancer hospital like crazy. The injured person turned out to be Angela. How did she become a patient of the cancer hospital? She was injured so badly, and she was in the ICU for so long, and she still couldn't come out. No matter how much I begged the medical staff to let me in, they refused, saying that family members could only enter after the rescue was completed. Even though my heart was broken and I was anxious to death, I could only stand at the door of the ICU and wait bitterly. Suddenly I saw a familiar figure, who seemed to be a junior fellow student from Angela's medical school. I quickly grabbed him and begged him to take me in so I could see Angela. She was so dependent on me. She had been dependent on me for 20 years. She must be in pain and scared now. The person she wants to see most must be me. But he shook his head at me. He said, Angela doesn't want to see me. How is that possible? My Angela. How could she not want to see me? He must be lying to me. I was so angry that I punched him in the face and rushed to the ICU. Several security guards who arrived directly grabbed me and handed me over to the police who arrived after the hospital called the police. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about my dignity. I cried and begged the police to let me go and never take me away. I said my wife was in the ICU and her life was in danger. I begged them to understand me. I almost knelt down in front of them. Several policemen were obviously soft-hearted, but the damn junior brother, who was punched by me, actually accused me of attacking a doctor and disrupting medical order with a cold face, and forced the police to drag me away. I continued to cry and beg in the police car, signed a lot of documents, and repeatedly assured that I would never act impulsively and cause trouble again. Finally, they sent 2 policemen to drag me back to the hospital. But the ICU nurse told me that Angela had been transferred out of the intensive care unit. My legs went limp, and I breathed a sigh of relief. I asked her tremblingly, "Is my wife out of danger?" She glanced at me and said coldly, "Wait for notification." But no one paid any attention to me, and I had no idea where to go to wait for any notification. I don't even remember the name of that junior fellow apprentice. I had no choice but to go to the reception desk and the inpatient department and consult everywhere I could. I was shocked to learn that Angela actually had kidney cancer. I found the ward where Angela had been, but it was empty. It was as if when I heard her being rescued inside the ICU door. It seemed like a dream and not real at all. That damned junior fellow disciple has also disappeared. I stayed in the corridor of the ward like an ant on a hot pot for 3 days and 3 nights. Until late one night, that junior brother appeared in front of me again. He handed me a sealed bag and said that Angela asked him to pass it to me. In the empty bag, there was only Angela's cell phone, a voice recorder, and a divorce agreement. He turned to leave, and I grabbed his arm and asked him where Angela had gone. I said I am Angela's husband, and I have the right to know where my wife is. He looked back at me and just stared at me without saying a word. Suddenly, he raised his fist and hit hard. I hadn't eaten or slept for several days and nights. I didn't even have the strength to resist, and he soon beat me until I was dizzy and unable to get up. When I opened my eyes again, he said that he would take good care of Angela and asked me not to disturb her anymore. Oh, what the fucking right do you have? Who the fuck do you think you are? Angela is my wife. We are just having a little disagreement. As long as I don't agree to divorce, she will be my wife for the rest of her life. However, as long as Angela is out of danger and safe, that's all that matters. I will spend a lot of money to find kidney cancer experts at home and abroad for Angela. I must let Angela know who can take good care of her. Knowing that Angela was still alive, I immediately cheered up. I couldn't wait to open the recorder. I guess that was what Angela wanted to say to me. But after listening to it, my sky is falling. That aggressive and foul-mouthed person, is she my mother? That ungrateful and shameless person, she is Jennifer? I returned to Angela's in my home in a daze, a place I hadn't been to for a long time. As the faint fragrance lingered, it seemed as if she would smile at me from the kitchen in the next second. I walked into her study, and the drawer was full of notes written to me in her beautiful handwriting. Drink a glass of warm water after getting up. You must eat breakfast. No matter how busy you are, you can't stay up late. You must not drink alcohol after taking ceftriaxone. You can't be aggressive while driving. Don't be aggressive with your employees. You need to change your impatient temper. Items that must be checked during annual physical examination. The densely packed lines are filled with her gentle advice. I cried so hard that my tears fell like rain. And under the pearl necklace I gave her, there was a small note. I wish Brian and Jennifer many children and a happy life. I tore up the note in anger. Who the hell wants to spend his life with Jennifer? Angela, why are you so stubborn? I just asked her to give birth to a child for my mother. I never touched her. You are the only one I love. Only you from beginning to end. I ripped open her collar, gasped for breath, and opened her cell phone. December 22. No moon shining on Brian. I stared at her pale face and the surgical sheet, as if struck by lightning. Angela is actually pregnant. But what did I say to her that day? I said that she had taken so many medicines that the baby would not be healthy. But that was because I thought she was just saying it out of anger, to trick me into getting pregnant. After all, she hadn't been able to get pregnant in all these years. My heart was broken immediately. I slapped myself twice. December 23. It is easy to change the hearts of old friends, but it is said that the hearts of old friends are easy to change. The picture is the voice message Jennifer sent her. She transcribed the voice messages into text and took screenshots. And those text conversations made me feel like a thorn in my side. I was drunk one time. And when I saw my mom crying because she missed my dad, she was upset, so I complained to Jennifer, who was comforting me. That's not true, Angela. I have always loved you and never changed my mind. December 24. The happiness of having two wives. The difference between a wife and a concubine is that they are different in status. I should be happy. My scalp felt numb. My mother chose the bracelet and forced me to pay for it and give it to Jennifer. It was not the gift I wanted to give her at all. What is the blessing of having a wife and concubine together? I never thought about. Angela, you misunderstood me too deeply. December 25. Of all the lights in the city, not a single one is waiting for me. No, Angela. When you recover, I promise to go home early every day to accompany you, okay? Don't be angry with me, Angela. December 26. I don't want to be ugly. I want to buy 7 wigs and change my hairstyle every day. The picture shows her order for a wig. The delivery address is Kevin's office. So she doesn't want me anymore? My heart aches. December 27. I slowly listen to the sound of snow falling. Close your eyes and imagine it won't stop. You can't get close. It's not that you are too heartless. I just love the beautiful scenery outside the window. I slowly savor the sound of the snow falling. It's like you're sticking to me and calling me Ching Ching. I opened my eyes and saw the merciless snow all over the sky. Who will compensate me for this good life? Angela's gentle voice seemed to be singing softly in my ear. My tears never stopped. December 28. I want to become a rounder and better. Eternal bright moon. The accompanying picture is a censored agreement with her signed name on it. I looked carefully and seemed to see the official seal of their medical school. Did she sign some kind of treatment agreement with the medical school? Is it for medical treatment? I didn't understand and frowned. I have to ask Kevin what kind of agreement he signed with Angela. December 29. Let's part ways and live happily ever after. The accompanying pictures were our marriage certificate, the diamond ring she took off, and the divorce agreement she signed. My hands are shaking. Clearly, those days, she said she forgave me, and she promised to be close to me and go back to the way we were before. But she still wants to leave me. In the end, it was all because of a child that he had to make such a fuss with me. Angela, I regret it now, okay? I will ask Jennifer to abort the baby right now. Will you forgive me? December 30. Dad, I miss you so much. If I can't come in the future, remember this man named Kevin today. He is my good friend and will come to see you on my behalf. The accompanying picture shows her back in front of her father's tombstone. I felt both sad and angry. Who is Kevin? Why let him go? Angela, you can't retaliate against me like this, you can't. For some reason, there was no further record. I clutched her phone tightly to my chest. The pain of not being able to see her was like 1,000 arrows piercing my heart, making it difficult for me to even breathe. I forced myself to stay in the office, eating and sleeping, and put all my energy into looking up information on kidney cancer treatment and finding experts at home and abroad. I must be more capable of taking care of Angela than Kevin. No matter how many times she called me, I never went to my mother's place for a single day. I couldn't accept the way she insulted Angela. But the most urgent task is to treat Angela's illness. I will deal with Jennifer's child after Angela's affairs are arranged properly. A week later, I couldn't wait to find Kevin with treatment plans given by several world-class experts. Where is Angela? Do you think these solutions will be more valuable? I don't want to argue with you. I just want to cure Angela's disease as soon as possible. Kevin just glanced at the thick information, seemingly having no interest at all. Senior fell and injured her brain before. After the emergency surgery, her body functions were severely damaged. In addition, her single kidney cannot withstand high-load treatment. All of your tumor plans are just empty talk and will not work at all. He stared at me and added, "It wasn't the injury from the fall when she was rescuing someone, but the night you left her on the street." I was stunned. Didn't she just fall that night? How could it be so serious? He glanced at me. "Do you really want to see the senior?" I loosened my collar and said in a rough voice, "Take me to see her. We can discuss our affairs as husband and wife ourselves." He looked at me steadily and said, "Come with me." I didn't expect that he didn't take me to the ward, but took me back to their medical school. After walking around for a while, he stopped in front of a cold laboratory door. My voice was trembling. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer me, but just opened the door. The specimen racks were filled with human organs soaked in formalin. My heart tightened, and my throat felt like it was being strangled, making it almost impossible to breathe. I saw Kevin standing in front of a row of display racks, pointing at some glassware. "You want to see Senpai? She's right here." With a loud bang, my sky is falling. I was trembling all over, and I took one step at a time and walked to the utensils with difficulty. My Angela. I still need to treat her. She actually, everything went dark before my eyes and I couldn't see anything. After a serious illness, my memory has become much worse. And I even forget what I had eaten in the morning at noon. I couldn't sleep all night. All I could see was Universal Studios on New Year's Eve. Angela was lying on the ground, looking at me for the last time. That was the last time Angela saw me in this life. Kevin said that on the day of the ICU rescue, he asked Angela for advice, but she refused to see me. Every time I think of that scene, I burst into tears. It turns out that Angela hates me so much. She didn't even leave me a place to worship. She actually wanted to punish me in such a cold way, making my life worse than death. I was wrong, Angela. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have relied on your tenderness and deep love for me to force you to be sensible and considerate. But I forgot that you are all alone in this world, with no one to love you. And you only have me to rely on. But I sincerely regret it. Can you come back to me and look at me again? Even if you come into my dream once, it would be good. On New Year's Eve, I could barely get out of bed. Looking at my mother crying, I laughed. "Mom, stop crying. Your love suffocates me. I want to visit my father-in-law's grave and say sorry for not taking good care of his precious daughter." Before walking out of the house, I looked back at her again. "Take care, Mom." There was a bouquet of flowers and some tributes in front of my father-in-law's tombstone. I know that's what Kevin brought. And I didn't bring anything. I know I am not worthy of it. And I am afraid of making him angry if I bring it. I just wanted to say sorry to him, that's all. The north wind blew coldly, and crows cried sadly overhead. I knelt in front of the tomb for a whole afternoon. As the sky was about to darken, I slowly stood up, gently stroked the tombstone and bowed deeply. On the way down the mountain, I opened the car window and drove very fast. There seemed to be a thin mist in the distant sky. In the hazy mist, I seemed to see Angela at the age of 15, waving at me with red eyes. "Brian, will you abandon me like Dad did?" I shook my head desperately and yelled at her desperately. "Angela, wait for me. I'm here to accompany you. I will never let you be alone, lonely and afraid again." 24. Kevin Extra. At the age of 72, I finally solved the problem of treating kidney cancer. The dean said that I brought glory to my country and benefited all mankind. We are the first country in the world that can cure kidney cancer and has passed clinical verification, allowing patients around the world who suffer from kidney cancer to finally see the light. But no one knows that the one who supports this belief and fights for it all my life is my beloved girl. No one knows how brilliant my success is and how painful my heart is. Because my beloved girl, she didn't live to see this day. I met my senior during my first anatomy class. Because of nervousness and fear, no matter how much mental preparation we did, when we really entered the autopsy room and saw the real body waiting for us to work on, we were still panicked and at a loss. The senior student was invited by the teacher to provide us with psychological counseling as an outstanding student. She is very beautiful, but what is even more attractive is her gentleness. She speaks softly and gently, no matter how big the matter is. When it comes out of her mouth, it is like a gentle spring breeze, which makes people feel at ease immediately. And her patience and calmness are fascinating. No matter how complicated the problem is, she can always solve it calmly and perfectly. I have never seen her impatient. Her emotions are always so peaceful and gentle. Just standing next to her makes people feel at ease. What shocked me even more was that she was a top student. In order to thoroughly understand some foreign medical information, she actually went to the English department to get a double degree. And every year she won first-class scholarships and 3 good student awards in both departments. I almost wondered if she was a fairy from heaven. I want to chase her, just like the countless boys who regard her as a goddess. But just as I was thinking about this, I heard that she had a boyfriend since high school a talented guy in the mathematics department of our school, named Brian. I was too young at that time, and the restless love was sprouting wildly in my heart, which made me extremely unwilling to accept. I don't think anyone can love Senior more than me. I think I can give that Brian a run for his money, so I secretly investigated him, and even followed him in class and at meals. A year later, I finally gave in. Putting aside Brian's excellence, he really dotes on his Senior. The Senior schoolmate was always gentle and calm, but only in front of him did she reveal her willful and coquettish side. And when the Senior sister looked at him, there was an unconcealable starlight in her eyes. Okay, I admit that I was expecting too much. This crush is already humble enough, and I don't want to be mean. So I put away all my thoughts, sincerely wished my Senior and Brian well, and then plunged into the laboratory, becoming a dull academic master in the eyes of my classmates. After graduation, I stayed on campus to pursue a PhD and was busy as a top. Although we lived in the same city, my Senior and I never met again, except for a reunion during the school anniversary celebration. She becomes more and more charming after marriage. I didn't even dare to look at her too much, for I was afraid that she would see the little emotions that I was trying so hard to suppress in my heart, and we would no longer be able to be friends. What I never expected was that on that snowy winter solstice, she called me and told me that she had kidney cancer. Just when I was in a state of panic and wanted to do everything I could to treat her, she came to my office with a pale face and told me that she wanted to donate her body to the college. I cried after she left that day. It's embarrassing, but I can't help it. What medical schools lack most is bodies, but few people are willing to donate their bodies. Even we who study medicine are very reluctant to donate ourselves or our relatives. Even if we are not superstitious, we cannot get over the thought of being treated like laboratory animals after our death, cut up and chopped into pieces. Senior, she is just like her name. She is really like the bright and flawless moon in the sky, fascinating and awe-inspiring. I don't want to think about what happened afterwards. That was a time that still breaks my heart no matter how many years have passed. If I had known that my Senior would leave so early, I would rather take a leave of absence from work and stay with her day and night. Unfortunately, I was too busy and could only spare a little time every day to see her. I didn't dare to reveal my feelings for her too much, so I tried to keep a straight face and act businesslike every time. Because I know her. If she realizes that I have feelings for her, she will definitely keep her distance from me, and I won't even have the chance to take care of her. She was like this in school. Since she didn't love her suitors, she would not give them any hope and would not hurt them in any way. She is such a sober, kind, gentle, and sensible girl. It's a pity that bastard Brian finally let her down. Whatever, she was originally the moon in the sky, and now she has returned to the sky. This world is not worth it. After my Senior sister passed away, I also signed a body donation form with the college. The Senior student donated her cornea to a blind girl. Later, I often went to see that girl. Every time I met her gaze, I seemed to see the Senior student looking at me with smiling eyes. The college leaders also gave special approval to make a complete skeleton of the Senior sister's bones and put it in the exhibition hall of the laboratory building. Every day when students pass by there, they will bow solemnly to the Senior sister. And in countless late nights when I couldn't solve a problem, or when I was depressed and couldn't get rid of it, I would choose to sit next to her, and let my thoughts find peace and comfort. It was as if the Senior sister was always there, and had never left. Back to the day I brought Brian to the herbarium. He fainted from anger, and I took the opportunity to kick him several times. But even if he dies, it can't eliminate the hatred I have for him in my heart. It was this bastard who made the last period of my life so painful. Even when I passed away, there were tears in my eyes. Whenever I think of those tears in my eyes when I was dying, my heart aches, and I feel like I'm dying. Fortunately, God had a good vision. That bastard Brian had a car accident on New Year's Eve and died on the spot. He also asked me to sign a body donation agreement. You want to stay in the same specimen room with Senior, right? Don't even think about it. But before I could distribute his body to another technical college that was waiting for it in vain, Brian's mother came and made a big scene, tearing and howling. tore up the agreement, and took his broken body away. There is no way that's it. Even if the donor has signed an agreement before his death, the donation will not be made as long as his family members make trouble after his death. This is also the reason why my senior told me not to tell Brian after her death. She was really disappointed with him. Later I heard that Brian's mother went crazy and walked around the streets looking for him every day with his ashes. Finally, he was sent to a mental hospital by the community. Before his death, Brian arranged for someone to abort Jennifer's child, which not only bankrupted her family's business, but also left them with heavy debts and lawsuits. In addition, Brian posted the recording of Jennifer scolding her senior on the internet, which dominated the trending searches for a long time. The family was basically socially ruined, and people chased and scolded them wherever they went. Their lives were worse than those of dogs. It was not until the second year after Brian's death that I found out that he had transferred all his shares during his lifetime, gave the company to other people, and donated all his money to our medical school. That's good, we really need the funds. I never got married or had children in my life, and focused all my energy on work. I was also forced and scolded by my parents. But what can I do? There is a bright moon living in my heart, and no light can get in anymore. It's useless to force me. The life I want to live is the life I choose myself. It has nothing to do with anyone else, and my parents cannot control me. I am getting older, and my students often worry about my health, and don't let me have surgery anymore. I don't know how many more patients I can save, but every time I save one more person, I will be happy for a long time. Just like tonight, I performed another operation and successfully brought hope to the patient's family. Walking on the same road where I had taken my senior sister to the hospital, I looked up and saw a bright moon in the sky, shining softly. I don't know why, but I always feel that the moon after my senior sister left is more beautiful than before. I was staring at the bright moon in a daze, and I seemed to hear the voice of my senior schoolmate praising me with a smile. "Kevin, you're awesome." I laughed. "Senior sister, thank you. It is you who gives me something to pursue and something to achieve in my life. My life in this world has not been in vain."